Hello, everybody, and welcome to True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada, where we take a deep dive into mental health's many physiological and psychological aspects. This is the show for you if you're looking for motivation, inspiration, knowledge, and solutions, and that's what we are all about here at True Hope Canada. And True Hope Canada is a mind and body-based supplement company dedicated first and foremost to promoting brain and body health through non-invasive nutritional means. For more information about us, you can visit truehopecanada.com. Today, I've got the absolute pleasure of welcoming Dr. Petkus to the podcast. Now, Dr. Dylan is a physician, researcher, and health optimization expert who takes an integrated approach towards sleep apnea. He is a peer-reviewed published author and award-winning researcher with a medical degree, a master's degree in endocrinology, and a master's degree in public health. Dr. Dylan focuses on how oxygen metabolism is at the core of sleep apnea. For over a decade, Dr. Petkus has coached and educated others on lifestyle changes and natural therapies to optimize health. His goal is to share practical advice for improving sleep, energy levels, and mental clarity. Today's question that Dr. Dylan's going to answer at the end of the show is, what is one thing people can do tonight to improve their sleep quality? And today we're going to be talking about sleep apnea and mental health. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Dr. Dylan, to True Hope Cast. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you? What is going well?
I'm doing well. And what's going well, besides my state of being, I guess it's Florida and it's not a hurricane today. That's a big plus. Sun is shining, and all 5 of my animals are healthy today. And my dog almost chased the goat this morning, but that turned out to be fine. So
All right.
all good.
All
things.
right. Interesting. I've never lived in a place where you have to think about tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and I guess if you just live there, you kind of get used to it, I suppose. I've lived in the UK and in Sweden and in kind of the middle of Canada. None of those things really exist, so it's never really been on my radar. But I feel like if I moved to Florida for like a few months or something, I'd be worried about getting swept up by a tornado.
Yeah, every place has its own thing. So I'm in North Florida, which does have more tornadoes, especially near the airport, because tornadoes like big open spaces. But also the fun fact where I live. So I'm near St. Mark's, Florida, which no one knows where that is, but it's one of the biggest small ammunition factories in the world. Okay. Do you remember like, were you personally there for the London smog? No, you weren't, but like, you know what that is?
Yeah.
When there was this inversion and all this like stuff trapped in the atmosphere. So St. Mark's, since it makes so much, and we'll talk about how this relates to sleep in a moment, obviously, but there's a lot of particulate in the air. And they have 2 meteorologists at all times in case there's an inversion, because that amount of pollution would kind of be not great. So that's just another thing to look out for in the air, and alligators. So
Amazing. Just another thing to be completely stressed out about all of the time. Wonderful. Well, today we're going to be discussing sleep apnea and mental health. And at the end of the podcast, you're going to be offering some solutions to a simple question that we ask to each guest to take us through at the end of the show, which is that question is going to be, what one thing can people do like tonight to improve their sleep quality? And we'll build up towards that towards the end of the show. But just as a kickoff, do you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do, please?
Yeah, so I am Dr. Dylan Petkus, and I help people beat sleep apnea, overcome sleep apnea naturally. So without CPAP, without mouth guards, all those sorts of different things, and really teach people how to work with their anatomy as opposed to fighting against it, so that they're able to breathe a lot more easily at night, and doing that with breathing exercises and lifestyle upgrades, so they can be able to do all sorts of things, right? Not only just sleep, yes, kind of the main outcome, right? But also if someone's on a CPAP, like we just had one of our clients who we go through this like weaning process, we like lower the pressure, and they've been able to come off of it. They're feeling great. That's awesome. Or even one person who started the other day, there's this whole silent majority of people who have tried a CPAP, hated it, and then have like no other option
Right.
And then we're able to, start getting them to make some shifts and improvements. That's what I do.
Awesome. Why sleep? What got you into that?
Why sleep? Well, I do it every night, so I'm an expert at it. No. So research is me search, right? And I had my own issues with sleep apnea many moons ago in the same galaxy that we're in. Had moderate sleep apnea, if that means anything to anyone. You have a certain sleep apnea score, if you will, but bottom line, like barely functional through the day. So, like, imagine maybe you just got a puppy, you just got a new kid, you're not sleeping for some reason, or you pull an all nighter for some reason. Like something happens. That's like every night. Do that like 3 nights in a row. That was like my existence.
Wow.
And being like many of our clients when they come in, try out a CPAP. It makes things worse. You're told to stick with it. Okay, but it's like, this is who does this work for? Can I meet them? Do they exist? And going through a lot of other alternative things as a result, like, okay, well, if it's just like keep your mouth open at night, that's just a solution. Then maybe just some mouth guards, a dental appliance, all these different things. And just like hitting a wall, like so many times we do in our lives, the wall of pain that causes us to like reconsider and relook at things. That's what happened for me, and being able to understand sleep apnea like more at a functional level as opposed to just anatomical for a new level of insights of like, okay, well, what are some other ways we can address that don't require like, Darth Vader mask and blowing air down
Right.
your throughout the whole night. And took me like 2 years for that to just go through things, which is a lot harder when you're really tired. Imagine that.
Of course.
But I guess that was part of the drive. Um, and then, being able to refine that with myself and with, a lot of our clients over the years and patients as well. Because sleep apnea is not like a one, not everyone has the same sleep apnea. Even though a lot of times the solution, like everyone gets the same, 10 centimeters of water pressure of air down their throat. But being able to really refine that where, we help people really make those turnarounds a lot more quickly.
Did you have your sleep apnea issues when you were going through medical school, after, before?
So before then, so if I was really not facetious, what's the word? Academic ivory tower. On my name tag, I usually only put MD, but there's two other master's degrees there. I just have somehow become anti-academic after all these years. But I was in a PhD fellowship program, okay, originally, and then ultimately exited out with my master's degree to go to medical school. But in that PhD program, that's when I had all these issues come up. So I didn't have the same level of clinical knowledge that I do now, which honestly was probably helpful
Hmm.
because if I was already entrenched in like, CPAP or die, probably wouldn't be able to make those insights that I have. But yeah, I was in graduate school, PhD for physiology there at the time.
All right. Um, just for people who don't have a great understanding about what sleep apnea is, can you just tell us, like, kind of basically what sleep apnea is? You mentioned that it's kind of like a broad term, and a lot of people experience it differently. But if you could just give us a basic rundown, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so in the simplest sense, sleep apnea is when a invisible person comes into your bedroom every single night and chokes you about 10 to 40 times per hour. Okay. Uh, we just want to be
Wow.
very visual, if you will. Uh, but what that looks like more physiologically is if we imagine your airway, right? Like if we imagine like a tube. Actually, I think one of the best analogies, um, those like thick paper straws that you've ever had, especially
Yeah.
with milkshakes.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, yeah, humans aren't much different than thick paper straws at times, but um, at night, that's good to keep open, right? Okay, we want that to be open. But when someone has sleep apnea, their sort of paper straw, if you ever had a paper straw in a milkshake and it gets wet, it collapses every single time you try to like suck up the relatively thick milkshake.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
It collapses. Okay. That's what happens in sleep apnea. Okay. There is something, we'll get into all the different factors, but ultimately it is a increase in negative pressure, which is the fanciest way you can say inhale. A faster or more forceful inhale that then causes this pressure to then suck in parts of your airways together. And it most happens towards the back of the tongue, that area in your throat, to cause this collapse of tissues. And that will happen again. I mean, technically, if it happens more than 5 times per hour at night, that can happen more than that. Many times, people who, when they come to us, they're at like 30 or 40 events per hour.
Wow.
Um, which, if you were to think about that, like think about if every other minute over the course of an hour, you held your breath for 30 seconds and you did it for 8 hours.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. So, and then that's not even the worst part. But wait, there's more. The damaging part is also when your body has to kick back in to motion, okay, or back into breathing. Because when your airway collapses, what opens it back up, right? What happens is that your body senses this closure in your throat, right? And these drops in oxygen, these raises in CO2 levels, carbon dioxide, and then it hyperactivates your sympathetic nervous system at night. And then that wakes you up, okay? And when I say wake up, it can be enough to wake you up in a way that you're not aware of it,
Right.
okay? And that's the more deadly silent assassin, but also just it can very overtly wake you up. You're gasping, your heart is pounding. Because if you think about like whether it's, I don't know, fireworks, you hear something in the yard at night, you hear something in your house, and that wakes you up and startles you
Hmm.
once. How much that affects your sleep? Then multiply that by like, again, let's say 20 times per hour, 8 hours, 160 times per night. So
Yeah, that's pretty intense. I mean, I've never experienced it myself, but it's quite clearly. I mean, I've been living in North America for about 9 years now, and there's like sleep apnea clinics everywhere. I don't think I ever really noticed them in the UK or in Sweden. Maybe I just didn't notice them, but they seem to be absolutely everywhere here. And I just wanted to ask you, like, is there a typical like demographic of individual who gets sleep apnea? Like, when you got it, you were quite a young guy, like, is that typical?
no, not at all. So yeah, that's what a lot of people. Because one, I look like I'm 12, many of the times, um, and yeah, and pictures of me as 12-year-old, I just look like a 1-year-old. Um, the demographic so it's about 70% men, okay,
Okay.
30% women, and this is diagnosed per sleep study. Okay. This may be different in reality. Okay. Just because it used to be just like 80, 90% men, but then someone had the thought of like, oh, well, when women have sleep problems, should we just like not only blame the hormones? Maybe. So coincidentally, women start to have more sleep apnea. Amazing. But still, it has more of a predilection for men. Okay. And then on top of that, about of that pie chart of all those men, about 50% of them will be 60 years of age and older. Okay.
Okay.
And then the other half is 35 to 60. And it gets increasingly more common as you age. Now, it can happen way before then, like for me or a lot of people. But that's typically what you see. And then also, 70% of those people are overweight. Now,
70% of the 60 plus.
70% of all people with obstructive sleep apnea
Okay.
are in the overweight category.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that being overweight causes sleep apnea. It can be a factor because, again, about 10% of the population is estimated to have confirmed sleep apnea. But if we look at the epidemiology, sometimes it's just a big word that I get excited in the middle of it. But if we look at those stats, 60% of America is overweight.
Yeah.
But only 10% of them have sleep apnea. So there's a gap there. And then what about the other 30% of people with sleep apnea? And then also what about when people who lose weight with sleep apnea? In one study, so it was out of the Journal of Hypertension in 2003, they tracked people who lost weight and had sleep apnea, a 20 to 40 pound weight loss, which is not easy.
No.
Especially when you're tired. Okay. That reduced sleep apnea severity by about 10%, which is like, cool. I got a t-shirt. And I mean,
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of other benefits of losing weight if you're overweight. But the relationship isn't necessarily one-to-one there.
No, for sure. I mean, I guess if you were overweight and you had sleep apnea and it's not a direct cause, even if you were to lose the weight, you still have the structures in place. You still have your sleeping position. You still have your sleeping habits. You still kind of have all of those together. So it's not just about lose weight and you're going to see the benefits of sleep. You're probably going to see some sort of improvement, but as I say, sleep apnea for a lot of people has been building up for quite some time, and the body is in like let's just say sleep apnea state every time it goes to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So say for example, I go to a doctor, I've got sleep issues. I tick all the boxes for like sleep apnea, whether that's like mild or severe. What's my typical pathway from that doctor's office? Like, where do I go? What do I get? What's my next step?
Yeah. So let's say you are in the algorithm, so to speak, or of the healthcare model approach for this. So next step is sleep study. Okay. It might be at home. Okay. It may be in a sleep lab. Then from there, 80% of the time, someone will get a diagnosis of sleep apnea of some sort. Either it's obstructive or central or mixed. And then if you test negative, which is 20% of the time, most of the time, I think about 50% of the time, they'll repeat that test, and then 10% more people, so we go from 80 to 90%, end up with a sleep apnea diagnosis. Which begs the questions from a resource perspective of why do the sleep study? But that's another discussion for another, or maybe it's a discussion for this day. But
Is it a quality test? Like, what do you think? What's your opinion on that?
So I think the lab it's a bit overdone. So like if we were to test, like if I wanted to test how fast you could run, okay, we're going to do realistic things. Like maybe your 40-yard dash, okay? Maybe I'll have you running around some cones or something, right? And let's say, we're doing that and you're a football player, and I'll alienate a whole audience. I'm not going to say which football we're talking about. So I'll alienate both audiences. But effectively, like those are things that may happen in either sport. You may run for 20, 40 yards at a time. That's a realistic thing, right? Now, why am I talking about this? Sleep. How often when you're sleeping in your home, do you have a mask on, electrodes on your head, gear all over you? You're not in your same bed, and all these things here. It's a
very
way
infrequently?
different environment, okay? It's now like instead of me having you run a 40-yard dash, I determine your speed by calling you at your house and telling you there's a fire inside and seeing how long it takes you to get outside. Like it's close, but like there's a lot of different variables in the way, right?
Sure.
So with a lab sleep study, a lot of times it's not uncommon for someone to go and be like, wow, I had a great night of sleep. Or maybe they have like a really bad night. It's very abnormal from their
Yeah.
typical pattern. Okay. And then also like the biggest thing I don't like is like the latency in someone getting their information. It's crazy. So like at the end of the day, a sleep study gives you really one actionable number. There's a lot of different numbers, don't get me wrong, but someone gets their AHI, which stands for Apnea Hypopnea Index, which is just quite simply how many times does this person stop breathing or have a very low rate of breathing per hour. That's it. Okay. It usually takes someone about 3 to 4 weeks to get that information.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't understand. I've tried to understand, but it's just crazy. And the reason is because a sleep tech has to verify it, right? That's a whole other process. And then that data gets sent and has to be signed off by a board certified sleep medicine doctor. So it's this whole like bureaucratic chain of events that need to happen before it's like, yeah, your sleep stinks.
Right.
At home is a little bit better. Okay. Now with at home, you do lose some of the accuracy of certain things because you're not going to have like the most accurate equipment. But again, now we're going to be in a more realistic environment. Okay. It's not as invasive. You can do your typical evening routine. You're not laying in bed wondering how many people have slept here. Like, you're just having a typical night. So I find those typically give better results or more reliable results in a way. And also, a lot of times people can just get them privately done.
Right.
I think I remember seeing on my insurance bill for the at-home sleep study, it was like $10,000. That was what insurance billed for it.
Wow.
Most expensive slumber party. Well, I'm sure someone can do more than 10 grand on a slumber party.
Sure.
The at home, it can range from like $300 to $600. So, yeah. So the sleep studies, I prefer the at home just for reliability, but also speed. I find that people typically get a turnaround on that better.
Is there a better way to do it, do you think?
Yeah, I think so the first best step is to get married here, and just follow me along on this one. So you get married, and then you will have someone eventually tell you, you are snoring so much or not breathing. I am really concerned and scared about your health and well-being. That's a pretty good, reliable test.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not being facetious, because if we were to just evaluate, say, how your snoring is at night or other sort of sound waves or different just sort of audio qualities of your sleep, that's actually highly predictive of if you have sleep apnea or not. And there's apps out there such as Snore Labs. I'm not affiliated with them, but I do think they're a great tool to have some insights to your own sleep without having to go to a sleep lab. And also things of that nature, because Snore Labs will give you snoring data, like how many events, the volume, or even the opposite, the absence of sound is going to be important to know.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
quick question. Does that app that you pay for, is that basically just recording your audio through sleep when you're sleeping?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just
Cool.
press the button, you put it on your nightstand.
Interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah. I wish I invented it. It's a pretty good idea.
What are your opinions on like some of these wearable devices that aren't specific for sleep but can track a lot of things, and like the Whoosh, Aura Ring, Fitbits, for example? I know they're not specific for sleep, but you do get some data.
My personal favorite, if someone were to have one of these devices, is an Aura Ring, and specifically a 3rd generation Aura Ring, because that has oxygen saturation data, which is going to be more telling of what was the effect of your pauses or very low flow rate breathing, right? The other ones, not so much, because a lot of them will either just use, they measure the motion, the amount of motion you have at night. Not super specific for sleep apnea, but the moment you're able to put oxygen into the equation, that allows you to have a lot more prediction over it.
Very cool. Yeah, I have one of those Aura Rings, and yeah, it's quite remarkable in regards to the statistics you get the next day. You can totally tell when you've had a bad night's sleep and look at the data. It's really, really, really reflective. So yeah, I highly recommend that product. These sleep apnea clinics that are in my little town. They're everywhere. Do you think that are they beneficial? Do they support people in regards to, let's just say, like a root cause problem? Like, from what my understanding of what you're saying with sleep apnea, it could be quite specific and quite different for a lot of different people. You go to the doctor, you get your test done, you have sleep apnea, whether it's, I think you said mixed or a couple of other different options.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are
So
they? Yeah, please, yeah, carry on.
it definitely depends on the person, because some people, they get a sleep study, they get a CPAP, they feel great. All the sleep techs feel great. All the respiratory therapists feel great. Everyone feels great. Life's awesome. And that's that.
Right.
Now, I don't want to take away from that population of people, because if someone is able to use a device in a way where they feel better and they don't want to do anything else, cool. I'm not going to dissuade someone from that, or like, you know, rob your, CPAP off your nightstand in the middle of the night. Now, the other 45% of people who that doesn't happen with, um, it can become a very frustrating process, because you go back, because so essentially what happens, you get a sleep study and you're like, okay, cool. Do you want to wear a mask, or do you want to wear like a mask for like a CPAP? Those are like your two main options, or really no options. And if you say yes, then you have to go get, it's called a titration study, okay, where they're determining what's the right pressure setting of this mask, okay. And then from there, you go home. I don't think I have any masks around me in the office, but you can get a full face mask. If that's uncomfortable, you can get a nasal mask. If that doesn't work, you can try, like, there's all these different permutations of equipment you can try.
Yeah.
Um, but then it just becomes like a very frustrating, defeating thing, because like that could be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 month process. And the person oftentimes feels like they're like worse off,
Hmm.
because you know, adding anything into your bedtime routine, like a machine with a mask and a hose and a vacuum and a, it can really make things worse, and
For
people
sure.
rightfully get frustrated and ditch the thing. That's what I did. So overall, I mean, like, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Before, like, CPAPs were only around since the um, when did it come out? I think it was like June 1980. No one quote me on that. But it was early 80s, which is kind of odd to think about. Like, that's kind of recent.
Yeah, it is.
Before then, the option was uh, lose weight, see if that helps. Uh, get a tracheotomy. That was an option for the CPAP. So I would say the CPAP was an improvement on that. Or
Wow.
it was just suffer, be miserable, and lose 20 to 40 years off your life. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Is there a lot of money for, like, the companies that make the equipment for sleep apnea? Like you said, even just like the test, you say the insurance companies are billing 10 grand for this test. Like, it
Oh
sounds
yeah.
like there's a lot of money in this in sleep apnea.
They're like, I'm not like tracking their, like, I don't know. How would I even track their finances? The IRS? But anyway, I have better things to do, I guess. But they're making so much money that um, Philips, with their CPAP machine in January, uh, they went through a $473 million settlement for some defects in the devices that were blowing cancerous material into users' lungs.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, I don't know about most people, but if I got a $473 million bill, I'm gonna change my name and like move to a different country. Uh, so and that's just one company, right? There's
Right, of
Philips,
course.
there's all these different companies. So it is a lot. It's a ton, really, because if you think about, like, even the equipment, like a plastic tube, how much did that cost to make?
Yeah. Where was it made? Yeah.
Yeah, where, like, all this stuff, and then, like, well, if the insurance company paid me, or got, like, sent a bill for 10 grand for me to sleep in a room and someone to watch a computer, I imagine the tubing is, probably, it's, I don't know, probably 10 cents to make, and probably
Yeah.
$100 tube. And I know the mask are like anywhere from 30 to 120 a pop. That's why, like, there's this whole eBay ecosystem of sleep apnea parts and supplies.
Like
The
black
black
market
market.
sleep apnea masks.
Yeah, the tubing, the mask.
Wow.
It's a. I guess it's technically. Well, is it technically a black market if someone's selling medical supplies? That's not my job to decide.
No, no,
Um,
no.
but it's. I mean, you're going to force people's hands to do that, and then also like the machine. I mean, how much is a dustbuster? Right? Maybe like 50, $150. You get a
Yeah.
nice one. A CPAP machine is essentially a nicer dustbuster in terms of the motor and being able to put out a constant pressure of air, and then you add in a computer chip in there and some tracking.
Right.
Uh, but nonetheless, if you buy that yourself, that's going to be somewhere around like 2 or 3 grand, and I would imagine insurance bills way more for that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's
It's big business. Yeah, I mean, if you had I feel like Philips with that like $500 million fine, and they're probably making a lot more than that, then it's just, they're still profitable on that product, I'm sure, at the end of the day. So it's interesting. There's a big rabbit hole we could go through on that for sure. Um, Are there so for you, you said a minute ago when you're telling us about your story, you gave up on like the machines, you gave up on that stuff. Like, so what was your route? What was the other option for you? I mean, I'm sure you really wanted to do something about it. Like, what did you do?
yeah. So like when I was going through that and like I kind of hit that wall of feeling like at a loss, hopeless, helpless, I like took a step back and I was like, okay, what did it like, how else can I look at this? Because everyone's just like anatomy, shove this in your mouth, keep it open, all that. But like, why is my anatomy a problem? And for me, it wasn't like a clear cut, like your adenoids are enlarged or anything like that. They're like, well, maybe it's your tonsils, maybe it's your jaw. I don't, a lot of this. It could be these 9 things. Great.
Right.
Um, here's your copay. But the thing I started to look at was in terms of just like the mechanics of it. Okay. Of there's this inhale going on and then clasp my airway shut. Well, what if I do something about that, the inhale? Because like everything upstream of that, whether it's my nose or what am I gonna do? Like get nasal surgery and then like a $10,000 dental appliance and just like hope this works.
Mhm.
And looking at that, be able to understand uh, as much as possible. Like, okay, well, what affects our breathing at night? Okay, because it's not so much like, I mean, it is partly your breathing during the day. We'll get into that. But the more you can control your breathing at night, then that should fix everything, right? But the problem being, I'm kind of sleeping during that time. So how would I impact that?
Right.
Um, so one of the first realizations I had, because my undergrad was in kinesiology, and then again the PhD that became a master's was in physiology. Very simple concepts, initially taught there. Like you have a neuromuscular junction, or simplest way, like a mind-body connection, right? If you're playing basketball, right? Doing this, shooting a hoop is something that becomes very subconscious to you, right? Your muscles just know to do this because you've done it so many times. Uh, and when you know that, and you think about breathing, okay, my brain tells my diaphragm to do something, and it's just gotten to a point where this neuromuscular connection is actually favoring a bad way of breathing at night. So how can I rewire
Okay.
this? Okay. So just like when you have a bad, you know, foul shot, unless you're Shaquille O'Neal, um, just gotta, make fun of Shaq, even though that was like 20 years ago. You retrain, you rewire, you try to break the old habit. So one of the most obvious ways initially was like, well, what if I just do some breathing exercises, like very rudimentary? I'm like, well, if I'm breathing too fast and if I practice breathing really slow, will my breathing land in a nice sort of happy place in the middle? Because intuitively, a lot of people already know this. Like if you practice slow diaphragmatic breathing, afterwards, when you're no longer focused on your breathing, it kind of stays that way for a little bit, right? Or the other way is true. If you hyperventilate a lot, like on purpose, and then you go about your day, you're still going to be like
Yeah.
breathing a little bit faster. So that's why I first worked on that. And like, it was one of those moments, like you have some of those moments in your healing journey where you do something and then you're like, oh my God, I figured it out. That was this. But then I got humbled shortly thereafter. Um, did the breathing exercises were super simple. And that's what I want to go over as like the big thing people can do tonight.
Okay.
Did that like next morning, like it was like one of those stereotypical like coffee commercials where like you wake up and there's like this soft breeze through the curtains. It was like comically ironic. And I was just like, my first thought was like, did somebody drug me? Because I just slept through the night, and that hasn't happened in like 6 months. And then felt like I had. I was like, okay, cool. But then with time, the effects wear it off because there's other factors, a lot of factors that impact your breathing. But that was like the big aha moment of like, I can do something about this.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel that a lot of people. I don't want to like think of like one particular thing that I think might cause this. I guess there must be a rise of sleep apnea. Am I right in saying that? It's going up and up and up, or am I wrong?
It's tough to say because the more you look for something, the more you'll find it,
Sure.
which is what's going on right now. Because like even like I said, like you know, women didn't have sleep apnea until we considered it.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
so there's a lot more screening now, and then with sleep studies being a lot more available at home, the number of new cases and existing cases, it is going up. Yes.
Yeah. So, do you think that there are some like big factors that everyone shares within sleep apnea? Like most people who have sleep apnea, that they might share some like common things. Like you mentioned about breathing, and breathing is obviously hugely important to be able to like do it correctly when you're awake as well as asleep. Your body's going to need to be, let's say, trained in a specific way to breathe. You know, if we're sat down for a lot of our days, our primary and secondary muscles of respiration, they're going to kind of be weaker, just like any other muscle. So I kind of think about that when I think of people's inability to like subconsciously when they're asleep breathe strongly or correctly, or I'm not sure what word to
Yeah.
use there, but
Yeah. So there's going to be nuances. There's like different subtypes of obstructive sleep apnea, whether it's like their breathing's really, really bad. It could be their anatomy is in a situation where, like, the moment they lay back, they get a pretty bad narrowing of their
okay.
airway. Um, there's these different subtypes that that's a lot of what we're looking for when someone initially comes in. Like, okay, what's like the predominant subtype? How's it showing up there? Because that's gonna dictate what's gonna be the most important exercises for someone. Now, for everyone, there's a lot of common denominators. Okay, and this is like the five big factors that I discover because there's so many things you could focus in on, but like these are the five most important. And luckily, I thought about this so much, I finally was able to get into an acronym. Okay,
Okay,
and just wait
sweet.
for it. The acronym is SLEEP.
No
It was a
chance,
really
no
happy
way.
day when I was like, "Wait, that's so cool."
You probably slept good that night.
I literally like I felt like I discovered the secrets of the universe. I was like, "Wow, I could have been saying that. It sounds so cool." So what does it stand for? S is soften breathing. Okay, we talked about that because if you have a less forceful inhale at night, keeps your airway open. Okay, and all of these are all aimed at keeping your airway open at night.
Okay.
Okay, L stands for lower stress. Okay, doesn't mean like get rid of your entire family, quit your job, move to. It doesn't mean that. It means like being more resilient to stress, having good relaxation protocols, or dealing with things in a different way, etc. Okay. The first E is for establishing your rhythm. Okay. So that's your circadian rhythm. Um, this is a big commonality because if you have sleep apnea, or really anyone with bad sleep, you run the risk of like your sleep schedule getting off the rails very quickly. Like you have one bad night, then that next day, then you may take a nap that throws off your sleep that night, and then
Yeah.
you don't sleep. Like it becomes this like very mistimed thing. Not only does that hurt your sleep, then it's going to hurt your entire rhythm throughout the day. So like when you produce hormones, will be at the wrong time. When you make certain neurotransmitters, will be at the wrong time. So your rhythm is something you need to establish. Okay. Now, and I forgot to mention the commonality of lower stress. Although we did talk about that, your nervous system at night gets like shaken up all the time. So then like you're constantly in a state of overdrive. Okay. That's why a lot of people, again, with sleep problems, including sleep apnea, they'll go through these times where they're wired mentally, but physically tired. Okay.
Right.
Nervous system overdrive. All right. So we did SLE. Second E is enhance your environment. Okay. Because when you're sleeping and breathing, all the different environmental factors, like if you live in St. Mark's, Florida, I'm sure there's probably a higher prevalence of sleep apnea there. No one has ever looked there, no one ever will, but I'm going to guess there is, because the air quality is worse, and areas with worse air quality actually do have higher rates of sleep apnea. Okay, it's just, by chance people with anatomical issues all live in the same area.
Okay.
So airway irritants, that could be like particles, it could be mold, you could have heavy metal, that you're exposed to. All of the different environmental factors, you need to be able to understand like what's causing problems and how you can improve that. And it could literally just be as simple. I mean, okay, it's never as simple as just like replacing your pillow, but like we've had clients who are like, oh yeah, like, okay, so your breathing gets noticeably worse when you lay down at night. Okay. How old is your pillow? 22 years old. Okay, that's great. Family heirloom. You willing to get a new one? Okay, let's get a new one, and like then they're breathing a little bit better at night. And then P is for prioritize nutrition. Okay. I could have made it Petkus, but that wouldn't make any sense or add any value. But it's prioritized nutrition, because when you have all this going on, right, like you're in overdrive, you're not sleeping well, you will deplete certain nutrients. Okay. And if those are depleted, then your metabolism continues to be off, hurts your breathing, hurts your sleep. So those are like the big 5 categories there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that, and I'm sure you've got. So I see on your website as well on um, optimalcircadianrhythm.com, which I'll share. You've got free trainings, and it sounds like you've got some good like blogs and resources there to kind of help people out and advise, which is just wonderful. Is that kind of the best place people can go to get some resources?
Yeah, so optimalcircadianhealth.com would be the best one. Usually the easiest is Googling, because you could Google my name if you want to risk it and spell Petkus right. You think I would have an easier to spell website and easier to spell name, but I really messed that up. So probably the easiest thing, if you wanted to find our website, it'll be the first thing that comes up. If you, the name of a book we have is The Sleep Apnea Solution
Okay.
book. Okay, if you Google that, our website will be first. If you do want to risk the misspelling, you can just Google my name, Dylan Petkus. Our website will pop up.
Cool.
But there's been so many creative ways people have spelled Dylan Petkus over the years. Sometimes I get an H in the middle, which I never understood. And
Well,
then
I'll make sure that that's in the show notes so people can just click a
no,
link.
it should be a puzzle. It should be a
It
puzzle.
should be a puzzle. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I can do that as well. It's really interesting that the P in sleep is prioritized nutrition, because our flagship product here at True Hope Canada is a broad spectrum micronutrient formula. It's actually the most studied micronutrient formula in the world, and we hear all the time people's sleep gets improved even when they're taking it for enhanced physical performance or to tackle depression or anxiety, etc. People report back saying that they sleep a lot better because we are taking care of a lot of nutrient deficiencies. And it makes a lot of sense that somebody who is waking up in a kind of startling fashion many times a night, clicking that sympathetic nervous system on, that's going to be very nutrient heavy in regards to like what your body's going to need to continuously do that. So it makes, I love that last piece of your acronym there is prioritize nutrition. That's just awesome. We're kind of coming to the end of the show a little bit, but I really want to talk to you about the connection with mental health and sleep apnea in your experience, what you've seen, and how you've seen your improvements working with patients, how you've seen their mental health change.
I mean, it's huge. Like for myself, I was like, I mean, I'll just be honest, I was like suicidal when I was going through this. It was bad, bad, bad. Because every day it's just like there's no joy. Everything's 10 times harder than it should be.
Yeah.
And then like what you spend your efforts on feels like a pit of like money, time, and effort of just like going nowhere. So yeah, like because I know when I speak to people, like we'll talk about like, hey, how's your mood? And a lot of people are like, I'm not depressed. I'm like, well, you have every right to be depressed if your sleep is like this bad. I know, like, oh, you're just sad. Practice gratitude, and end of study. So yeah, it really will throw people into that, downward loop of depression. Anxiety is another huge one. We'll get into like the neurochemistry of this, but also just like plain simply, like you can't do things as effectively, right? Do you think you're going to feel on top of it at work, or like everything is crashing down around you at like all times, right? It's going to be the latter. And then also like irritability, because when you don't sleep, you don't have patience. And it's just like, whether it's like your kid or your spouse, and just like something that shouldn't be an issue is now suddenly like a very sharp moment, and like then you're having to apologize, all that. So it has a huge impact. Reason for that being, like when you don't sleep, all those like neurotransmitters that need to be refreshed in a way does not happen. So you're not getting like the dopamine you need, which is also ADHD is a very common comorbidity with sleep apnea, but also the other things, because if you're not having enough serotonin, if you're not having enough epinephrine or norepinephrine, then that's going to just lead to a neurochemistry that's not going to really favor. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, if we are nutrient deficient, your body's not going to have the building blocks to produce these chemicals, which are very necessary for not just sleep, but for every minute of the day. So, very, very, very important. Let's cover the question that we asked at the top of the show, and I know it's probably difficult to name kind of like one thing, but I feel like you've got something for us. So, what one thing can people do tonight to improve their sleep quality?
Yeah. So what you want to do, it's called box breathing or rectangle breathing. So I'll explain kind of both. They're very similar. And this is very often like one of the first things. This is like the first thing I talk about like in the books. I'm like, do this tonight. I think I'm working on an edition where it's like in chapter 1, because books that'll go on way too long, and then it's like, here's something to actually do. I'm like, no. It's just, you bought this because you're tired. So box breathing, super simple. So as you lay down tonight, put your head on your pillow. You're going to be breathing either way. So breathe this way. Okay. So like let's just do it better. It's a inhale for a 5 count. Okay. And don't get a stopwatch out. Don't be that person who's in bed trying to relax with a stopwatch. Don't do it. Okay. But I need to do 5 exactly. So just a 5 count in, and do this all through your nose. Okay. That's the best. Okay. Inhale and exhale through your nose. So inhale for a 5 count, pause for a 5 count, exhale for a 5 count, and then pause for a 5 count. And then you start the cycle over again at an inhale. So it's inhale, pause, exhale, pause, inhale, pause, so on and so forth. Now, the real magic is, well, in the beginning stages for people, the real magic is extending the time of the pause. Okay. Because some people do box breathing and they're like, this is kind of hard. Some people do it and they're like, this is lame. Why? Like, this isn't doing
Yeah.
anything for me. So for both parties, the same principle applies. So if box breathing is too hard for you, you can just decrease the time of the pause. So you can do 5 inhale, 3 pause, 5 exhale, 3 pause, so on and so forth. Now, the more you can increase that pause time, the more it sets. Remember that like mind body connection? I call it like the brain breath connection. It sets that up for better sleep at night, or it carries over into the night a lot better. Okay. What you would do is increase the timing of the pause. So it would be like inhale for 5, all right, then maybe pause for 8. Okay, then exhale for 5, pause for 8. Okay, and you would just keep in that pattern there, and you can extend that. I mean, most people maybe like 5, 10, 5, 10 can be a good goal. For some people do that and they're like, oh my goodness, people actually do this. Yes, and this is like really the entry level of a lot of the breath work we work with our clients on, but a lot like the rectangle breathing was actually the exercise I talked about here today for myself, where I was like, wow, I can't believe the answer was this simple. Now, I made some improvements and then had to like,
Sure.
but some people, whether they like they watch a video of ours or they get like our book and then like they'll be like, wow, I totally thought that was going to be like the most worthless thing I thought I was ever going to do for myself. And I actually slept really well. Like that's usually
Yeah.
the
That's
response
funny.
we get. So,
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really great advice. I really appreciate it. Just one question. How many repetitions would you do of that box breathing at night?
so typically I just tell people to do it as they drift off to sleep because it has a very relaxing effect where people
Okay.
just do it and they just kind of drift off. Because the other thing is if you're counting in your head, that prevents you from thinking about what you need to do tomorrow,
Yeah.
what you should have said today, and like that thing that happened 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Like
It's a good point.
you don't really have the mental space to think about that. Um, Otherwise, I would just say 10 minutes. But a lot of times people just do it as they drift off to sleep. Some people don't make it that far. But I would just do it as you sort of drift off to sleep. Because eventually, like the counting become like it's a bit of an effort at first, but it becomes
Sure.
easy. Yeah.
Well, what I love about that, I think that would give people the capacity to do other things when they see the benefits of that breathing method. You know, once the sleep begins to improve more and more, it gives them the ability to start focusing on the other things that you're talking about, the lowering the stress, the establishing a rhythm, enhancing their environment, and prioritizing their nutrition, and giving people the ability to take those challenges on as well, to gradually improve their health. I think that's awesome.
Yep. Yep.
Well, Dr. Dylan, I thoroughly enjoyed myself today. I learned a lot about sleep apnea, and St. Mark's in Florida. Appreciate that. I will make sure that everyone has got simple access to your website and all your social media, etc. as well. But I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Well, for any information about what we've spoken about in the show, you can check out the show notes. I'll put some links in there for you. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you so much. This is True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. We'll see you soon.